Now let's look at some of the absurdities of this. And I don't like to take such a mystical subject, such a religious subject, steeped in numinous energies of religious belief, as they should be. I don't like to take such a subject and poke fun at it, and indeed I'm not. But let's look at some of the absurdities of angelic beings. They are sexless. They are sexless. But how do they reproduce if they're sexless? Are they cloned? Are they reproduced through a process which we call in yoga, Kriya Yoga? They have no physical DNA molecule to clone. Secondly, does God make them? I believe in God. I don't want to live in the universe if there isn't a being higher than I am. And that is a terrible thing to consider, that there is no consciousness higher than your own. And so, scientist though I am, and a person who has suffered more than most, and had many, many opportunities to observe angels, and have been present in rooms in my researches in which humans have materialized in ectoplasm. And I have been able with other doctors to take their pulses before they dematerialize. It isn't that I haven't been exposed to phenomena. Indeed I have. But when you add it all up, you must consider some of these absurdities. What happens then? Does God make them? From what material are they made if they are not reproduced or generated, say, sexually? Thirdly, do they think for themselves? If they think for themselves, do they have a brain in order to think for themselves and give responsible answers? And if they have brains, are these brains like ours, based on a computer? Well, that is what the human brain is. It's a computer. And all right, it need not necessarily be made out of steel or wires and goodness knows what. It could be made out of flesh like ours, but it isn't. The angelic brain, if it is there, is not made out of flesh, nor is it a computer. So how does it think? And then again, if they're not sexually produced and not sexually endowed, they haven't got the organs of regeneration, in whose image are they made? We say we are made in the image of God, and we are. In whose image are they made, and by what mechanism are they made alike to that image? And so out of that one says, well, what does God look like? If angels are close to God, what does God look like? Nobody knows that. Do all angels have the same face? Is it a young face? It is an old face? Is it a... what kind of face? And how long do angels live? No one knows that. And these are matters that you have to face if you're going to support the contention that there are angels today. I'm not denying that there have been angels in a suitable mystical, religious, numinous background. And the miracles of the angels. The one that clutched the knife from Abraham's hand as he brought it down to stab his son Isaac. What about the miracles? More prevalent. I've searched. I can tell you things about the astral world. I've had thousands of out-of-body experiences, and that need not be such a surprising thing today, for that kind of experience is available to you. But I see no evidence of angels in the astral world today. that there are high beings who live right on the periphery of the astral world, where it merges with mental substance and where thought can be clothed in emotional or astral body. Yes, I've seen them there. Glorious beings, but not angels. High in human consciousness, yes. Beings as high above me in awareness as I am above an animal in awareness. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then sit your dog down at a chessboard and ask it to make the first move. You know what I'm talking about. That there are such beings on the earth and that they have passed through the human evolution, I accept. But not in the form of the Christian concept of angels. And so as a person searching, wanting to know, looking for, I have been confronted with these matters. Now, it is my intention to make the subject as open as possible, and I'm going to submit myself to questioning now. And please understand, I don't pretend to be an authority on the subject. What I can tell you is that I have looked into every possible aspect of recorded history of angels and have been able to substantiate very, very little, apart from the fact that they have a history. And I do not doubt that those great ones in biblical history actually saw them, encountered them. Certainly I accept that. But that they exist today in great numbers and can be cajoled and can be coaxed and can be made to bring you messages and so on, I deny. I totally deny. I'd be happy to answer questions. Anyone? Yes, sir.
I wonder, Dr. Baker, whether you would be kind enough to give us an account of the most amazing experience you've had, whether it be out of body or...
Thank you. Of course, the most amazing experience must always be your own. As Carl Jung said, I can talk to you till I'm blue in the face about this and that phenomenon. But in the end, it will have to be you to experience it before you need necessarily believe it. And I have talked about ectoplasm produced in seance rooms of voluminous amounts, pouring from the mouth and the nostrils and the ears, collecting around the medium's legs, and then seen entities, human entities, gradually emerge in the astral, in the ectoplasm, and jolt into reality. Walked with them, talked with them. They had consciousness of their own, personality of their own. You could turn them towards a red light at the back of the room and you could see the light through their bodies, and so on, and so on. That wasn't the most miraculous experience of my life. The most miraculous experience of my life occurred when I was 19 years old. And I had been punched through the chest by a piece of shrapnel that was taken out of my back and lay dying at the bottom of a tank in northern Italy. And then dragged out of the tank, more dead than alive, and taken to a hospital in Orvieto, and there during the night, slowly bleeding to death internally into my chest, I had an experience of fire, spiritual fire. The same sort of thing that burns in the grate of your own home, but this time it was fire. And it was spiritual fire, and it punched me at the top of my head and the soles of my feet. And I was held in it for 2 to 3 minutes, and some magnificent being sustained me with that fire, and I survived multiple shrapnel wounds of the head and chest, and bear those wounds to this day. and can give testimony that such a being came to me. But for me, that had to be God. And one does not talk about God lightly, especially if you are a scientist. That was my miraculous experience. Question. Sir, right at the back.
As you suggest that the angelic hosts have dissolved due to the lack of religious originality, what do you feel is being replaced in the vacuum you say cannot exist?
The difficulty is that we have very, very acute, fine minds that are scientific, who are writing science fiction, where there are, if you like, great cranes and space capsules and spacemen being generated in the astral world now at rather a material level, not up here in the heaven states, but rather a material level. And it may be some time before the new angels emerge. And many of our kids are experiencing the equivalent of angels, but they are astral, and they are astral spacemen, and they are aliens, and they are men from Mars or here or there, but it's a completely different genre of angelic being that is going to emerge. And wouldn't that be right? You know, the astral world changes in its structure according to the people's feelings, and there are 6 billion on the planet. And the fashions of yesteryear are not the structures in the astral world of today. The astral world today is filled with billions of spirit entities in its lower planes who have been on Earth, incarnated on Earth, and are in the astral world as a sort of transit camp. But there are higher humans who have been in incarnation, who have been spiritually motivated, who have stuck to certain codes of conduct and principles and ethics, who populate the higher regions of the astral. The astral world has 7 subplanes. There they are. And the 3 lowest are the equivalent of gas, liquid, and solid in material substance. But the 4 highest contain the entities that I'm describing. The highest of all is the one in which we can find the most spiritual, emotional, astral beings. And it is in such planes that those people out of the body, as the result of some disaster in their life, perhaps in an operating theatre, the anesthetic has gone wrong, the person has died, is being resuscitated, moves out of the physical body, goes into the astral world, and if the vibrations of that individual include spiritual will, compassionate love, and higher manas or abstract thought, that person with such content in his consciousness moves to the highest of the planes in the astral world, up here, and it is there that such beings, Christ-like figures, are encountered there. What was your question again? Where are we? Was that all right?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Like that. Yes, good attempt. Nice. I liked bits and pieces of it. Couldn't marry the two together, the priest and the scientist. But then, of course, I'm converted to Rupert Sheldrake's book, The Presence of the Past and the Suggestion of Morphogenetic Fields. Very interesting, because angelic concepts might be as a result of it. The suggestion of Sheldrake, or as I see it, is that if I do that as a motion, each time I make that motion, I lay down a pattern of energy in this somewhere, because I'm doing it mentally. I want to do it, therefore it is emotional and astral. And the moment that you repeat something, that structure that you have created begins to feed you back. It begins to feed the energy that you have put into it back to you. And this is how I see morphogenetic field. It brings to me meaning, to ceremony, that when a thing is done according to the shape of the church and the colors of the stained glass windows and the presence of the choir, and it is done as a mass again and again and again and again, it begins to feed back its energies into those who participate, but you haven't listened. Fine, but where are they? And we must have angels that fit our day. They must be true to our reality. Certainly. Nobody's denying that doing that, and I'm thinking of homeopathy, nobody's denying that by doing that you don't lay down a pattern of energy in that shape. And if that energy happens to be sufficiently human, and the principle behind it is divine will or compassionate love and so on, that energy doesn't exist for a period of time. Nobody's denying that these energies can be accumulated to form what Sheldrake calls morphogenetic fields. But the fact is that there's a great difference between creating a vortex of energy like that and letting it take a shape of a head with a crest perhaps on it, and wings, and no feet, and so on, which is a traditional Christian picture. Anthropomorphized. Well, we all try and do it with God. You see, some people say, well, what on earth's the good of God being a vortex of energy? I want God to look like a human being. Then I can understand him. I want him to look like a Moses, and we therefore try and put an anthropomorphized figure on what we're talking about, and then you may get what are angels. I can't say what you will do. I can only say that energy-wise, the potential is there, but at the moment, from my own observation, that structure for mysticism, that structure of numinous energy fitting into Gothic arches and stained glass windows and incense and so on, is just not there. Gone for the time being. And that something else will replace it. And our kids, our grandchildren, will perhaps have angelic spacemen, if you like. The beauty of this is, of course, is that it explains things like homeopathy, where you take something, a herb, and you dilute it and shake it or grind it, and you do it again and again and again, and all the time you're pumping your energy into your action. And the result is you have a homeopathic remedy that somehow or the other heals a person. And I think it's very wonderful. But to be perfectly honest, I've been around the world several times lecturing on subjects like this, and there is a world hysteria with regarding the subject of angels. And I don't want to destroy that. Hysteria breeds religions, And we're looking for new religions. We're sick of the worn-out images of old religions. We're looking for religions that will release the energies of the planet, the energies of color, of sound, of magnetism, energies that you and I grew up with. And we want these in the new religions, and maybe this sweeping away in the unconscious of mankind of old forms is necessary for the new religions to come in. You've got a new one here, a new religion in this out-of-body experience. Because if you can induce an out-of-body experience, and you are able in the state of being out of the body to project yourself astrally to these regions, you're in contact with the gods, as it were. And that's a new religion. And if you are a person who is interested in the environment, you have a Ray 3 soul or something extraordinary like that, and you're interested in the environment, and maybe the new religions will be focused around a simple thing like planting trees. And trees are planted at a certain time of the year, and certain seeds for this species of tree and that species of tree. And it's related to this, whereby the people gather around the tree planting and create a vortex of energy by certain movements, backwards and forwards, perhaps rotating and color and warmth and so on. There lie the new religions, and that's why I'm here, because I believe that we're on the edge of the third millennium. It is the third millennium in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, and it's going to bring forth new religions. Yes, sir, right at the back.
We are patterns of thought. Yeah?
We are patterns of thought.
Patterns of thought. Everything is a pattern of thought. Yeah? We wouldn't be doing that or not.
Well, you make the statement. I'm not going to fit in.
Is that pattern of thought, from what I can gather, is from the source of love?
Have you studied theosophy at all, if I may ask?
Well, not really, no.
Right. The theosophical contention is that certainly life evolved on the earth. Life evolved and created forms from single-celled creatures right the way through to up to mammals and hominids and so on. But the esoteric or theosophical proposition is that yes, the form building went on the planets, but there is a higher being, a spiritual entity far, far older than the earth itself, that descends, if you like, and attracts the highest of these form structures of a planet towards a greater destiny. And with regard to mankind, I have a simple philosophy. We're immortal. We're immortal. But hang on, let me finish my answer. That we are immortal, and the great joy comes when through your experiences of life on the earth, you know you're immortal. The moment you know you're immortal, it changes the whole nature of your living. It takes the sting out of life. There isn't this constant rush and bustle to get things finished. You know you're immortal, and with a thing like reincarnation, that you come back again, it does just that. And that's what I would like everyone to consider going away here tonight, that we are immortal, and that immortality is worth chasing, worth searching for, worth sacrifice. There's got to be something more. If you are giving yourself to your family and sacrificing and struggling to send them to university, if you are a person that tries to make out of life something more than just rubbing along, looking into art and truth and beauty and goodness and so on, there must be a destiny, not just throwaway, here today and gone tomorrow, finish. Yes, sir. Please. Do we? Are you asking me, do we have it? No, the answer is yes. When we die, we throw off the physical body. It begins to disintegrate. A period between lives of, say, 1,000 years. We call it deva. Old teaching. But of course the difficulty is that times are changing. Our planet is being burdened increasingly with a higher or greater and greater population. When I was a little boy, the population of the earth was 2 billion. Today it is 6 billion. 3 times increase in my life. Where does the future lead? How are we going to deal with it? And there are some lovely ancient teachings on the possibilities that lie open to man. I just don't think, as a doctor of medicine and as a student of space medicine, that all we need do is just to get into our space vehicles and take off and plant a colony on the moon or another one in this or that planet. There are grave difficulties lying ahead of man. Most of us don't understand anything of these difficulties. You go to bed for 3 weeks because you're ill. You don't understand perhaps that you lose half your skeleton. Half your skeleton in terms of calcium is passed out with the urine while you lie in bed. You go to the moon, the same thing happens. And this is what we call weightlessness, that the body becomes deprived of half its skeleton. And it is in the long bones of the legs and the arms that the red blood corpuscles of the body are generated. And you take away half its substance, and you think the red blood corpuscles will be made in the same way? And what about if you reduce the physical body's substance in that way? What about the astral body, which is the source of emotional conditions, diseases? If you are reducing its substance, what new emotional disorders lie ahead of him? That we can just walk out into the solar system and plant ourselves wherever we are is not part of my belief and philosophy. But there may be ways around it. Question? Yes, sir. There are what, sorry? There's a word I'm not getting. Oh, light being. I described a light being when the gentleman there asked me about the most miraculous experience I'd had in my life. Here was a being that punched light energy through me with tremendous force, and I experienced an ecstasy that is just inconceivable for a period of 2 to 3 minutes. And when that was over, I was able to sit up on my stretcher in the crypt of Orvieto Cathedral, and at that moment, that very moment, medical orderlies rushed down into the crypt and said, "The plane is here, walking wounded only." There was a push on. The place was crowded with dead and dying and wounded men. But I knew when I had that experience and could sit up after it, after being drugged with morphia and goodness knows what, I knew in my mind that I had to walk out to that plane, trailing bandages, whatever, And I did. I walked out to that plane. I got on it as walking wounded, and I was back in Naples 20 minutes later. I believe in light beings, yes. And if you studied my diaries, and there's a stack of written diaries that high, you would find references to those beings. No, I'm trying to be emphatic. Yes, no. I've looked quite separate from emotional involvement. I've looked for the phenomena. You can learn in the astral world when you're out of body to walk off a cliff because you know the physics of the astral world. You can call up a scenario that you wish to be in. You can change the scenario in the astral world that you happen to be in. You can lay down a grove of trees. You say, well, that's all in your imagination, and of course it is, because the astral world is generated by humanity. All I want is to say, come on, you guys, wake up. You're immortal. The potential out there is tremendous. We'll create our own angels, but you must have devotion. And you must have the capacity to feed them with your love, your compassion, your will, your atma. And if you don't feed them, they've got no umbilicus. There's no umbilical cord to them. And angels, in my opinion, originally in biblical history, were fed by the devotion of the initiate patriarchs of the Old Testament. And they produced a damn good job. But the infrastructure was there. I don't see it there now. Yes, but very few people, when they have a mystical experience, when they have a love of God, very few people go looking into the matter objectively, as a Rupert Sheldrake or as a Douglas Baker, scientifically. Most people, oh, it was just the most wonderful thing. And what else happened, my dear? Oh, I don't know what. All I know is that God is a reality. They're not looking for any evidence. No, but they do. They need people to come forward and say, look, take my testimony from me. There is survival after death. There is something better in this world than just living from birth to the grave. And if some people can do that, let them do it. I would like to give descriptions of heaven states where people are not the slightest bit concerned about proving that they have survived death. They're there. They're involved in the glory of God in some form or the other, and that's what they want. They're not interested in me because I happen to have an experimental mania about me. Yes, ma'am. Sorry? This planet is presented with a population of 6 billion today. 60 years ago it was 2 billion. 60 years before that it was 1.5 billion. There's a tremendous problem of logistics today. Yeah, and yes, but where is the help coming from? That's the problem, to assume that the divine can deal with everything, whether it's a population of 1.5 billion or 6 billion. It's just not common sense. There are terrible stresses in the inner world. Some of the things that one has to adjust oneself to is the knowledge and understanding that the inner worlds are almost complete chaos. They are completely chaotic. And chaos is the nature of those inner worlds. And we say, oh, chaos, that's terrible. But when you start to come up with latest scientific research and discovery, and you see that chaos has a design, And chaos has a pattern, and you can sit at your television and watch it on a videotape. That chaos has its patterns, its design, its logistics. You can anticipate it, you can forecast it. I think that I would like to call a halt there. Is somebody going to extract me here? One more, please. Yes, all right. I think that's absolutely true. If we don't need the angels, if we're not looking for them, we won't be. Energy follows thought, you know. Energy follows thought. And if you think of someone, energy from you goes to the person you think of. And that would be true of angels. But what I say is, what do we do with things like the Dead Sea Scrolls? Do we ignore them? Walk away from them? What do we do when there is no evidence of a religious belief? You know, most people will say, so what? But some of us want to know. I've merely come here tonight to tell you what I have observed. And the answer is, with regard to angels, that they existed, certainly. That they exist today, for me, no evidence. That people have experiences of the presence of something, no doubt about it at all. People have mystical experience, the presence of God, and so on. And I don't want to take that away from them. But let's get it quite clear. There are hierarchies of life using this planet that we know nothing about. But there is no evidence that there is a Christian angelic type. And maybe Christianity will be greatly freed by this knowledge that the old devotional attitudes must now be replaced with the attitude of our new generation, who take to spacemen better than they do to mystical beings. I want to thank you very much for coming along tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Is the tea ready?
I'm not sure about that. Can we... Just give us a moment to clear some chairs at the back here so we can move about.
Yeah. All right, I'll answer one question while you move the chair.
Can I just make a point? I would like everybody to realise that we in no way anticipated so many, and we have to very apologetically say, tea for Dr. Baker, that we can't possibly supply tea.
For all of you.
I'm dreadfully sorry, but you just can't do it.
It's too dangerous to make it.
You're saying that you can't feed the 5,000. One question while we're clearing the chairs, please. It is said that man emerges as a spark of the divine. We all have within us a spark called a monad. And the divine is a flame, the flame divine. And of that sacred flame divine, each of us has a monad within us. It has been taught for many centuries that the total number of sparks of the divine, or monads, using the Earth scheme, our planetary scheme, as a place of evolution, is 60 billion. So the answer is that at the moment, with a population of 6 billion, about one person is in a body for every 10 waiting for a body. You've got to do some reading. Yeah.
Is that the last question, Dr. Baker? I want to say to everybody, I really apologise for the speaking tonight. I really hadn't expected all these people. But can we say a big thank you to Dr. Baker? Thank you very much for wonderful work.
And can we thank our hosts, tea or no tea?